Today we're going to be looking at UV unwrapping, or it's sometimes called UV mapping. I'm just going to open up where I left my model off last week. Hopefully yours is a bit more advanced than mine by now. So what UV unwrapping is, or UV mapping, when we want to add textures to our models, a texture is actually a two-dimensional thing. It's flat, it can be printed out on a piece of paper, and we'd be trying to wrap that around the model. Now obviously, you know, if we've got a square texture, it's not going to apply too well, so we have to do a UV unwrap. So we can tell Blender where on the 2D texture we want the 3D, or where on the 3D model we want the 2D texture rather. Let me just open up a UV image editor here, and I'm going to add just a new image. Let's call it UV test. UV underscore test. Underscore doesn't matter, it's just my preference. I don't want the texture to be alpha, and I'm going to change the generated type for now to a UV grid. We could also use color grid, it makes no difference really. Actually, let's do it with a color grid. So let's do that again. Add a new texture, UV underscore test, and change that to a color grid. Okay, the reason I'm doing that is because we've got these letters and numbers, which it's easier to locate on the model. Okay, now if I want to apply this texture to this model, well, the first thing I've got to do is add a material. So first of all, I'm going to select all the vertices using the A key. Actually, let me turn on the screen thingies. I want to run that, and hopefully it should appear down here somewhere. Yep, there it is. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to select all my vertices by pressing the A key, and I'm going to add a material. So we slide across here to the material tab, which is this little kind of shiny globe, and we're going to add a new material. So just press new, and that's it. That's all we need to do for now is new. It's added a standard material. Okay, so let me come back now. This texture has disappeared. The reason being is this texture has not been assigned to this model. Okay, so let me bring back the texture by opening up this drop down here, and the color grid is the one, UV test 001. And if I press assign, okay, you see not much has happened. There's a couple of reasons for this. One, because I'm in solid view. If I went to a textured view, okay, you see it's turned pink. And the reason for that is this model has not been unwrapped. So if we zoom in down here, we can see this tiny little dot here, but what this dot actually is all these vertices together, all on top of one another, and it's just picking up the color of that pixel, okay, because it hasn't been unwrapped. So how do we unwrap? First of all, we can press the U key, which gives us our unwrap menu, and you see we've got a number of options here, and to be quite honest, most of the time none of these are really suitable for what we want, but nonetheless we'll work with what we've got here, and we'll just press the first option, unwrap. Okay, and once again you'll see nothing's happened, because Blender doesn't recognize the model the way you recognize it. It doesn't know how things should be or how they shouldn't. So let me just reset. If I reset now, you'll see we've got a quad that covers the whole texture, okay, and this texture is repeated over the model, and that's not what we want either. You know, this texture has been repeated over and over and over. So what we need to do is kind of split this model up into sections, and then once it's split into sections, Blender will have a better idea of how we want things to be and how to go about it. So I'm just going to reset this UV again, which, okay, it is. I'm going to go back into my solid view just because it's easier to see things. And how would we reset this? Well, it's a very human-like figure, and we should all be familiar with the Second Life avatar, the skin unwrap. This picture here, most of us have probably seen this before. It is the Avatar UV by Robin Wood, who is Robin Sojourner in World. This has been around for years. This is the unwrap for the standard avatar. Robin did a lot of work on it, you know, color coding it and really making it for skin and clothes makers to help them out. You'll see she did things like down here, for example, the arm is repeated on the SL avatar. So you've got the two halves of the arm, the front and the back, but she color coded, so this yellow part here we know should line up this yellow part here, and similarly with this pink part to this pink part up here. So be familiar with that, but we can see how the avatar has been split up, so we can try and apply that to our own model. So first thing is, let's separate the arms and legs out. So we'll deselect everything with the A key, and I'm just going to go around and I'm going to basically mark the vertices to get the edges to separate the parts I want separated. So that's the arm separated there. Okay, I'll do the same on this arm. I'm shift selecting to add to my selection. Let's do the tail. So shift select, shift select, shift select, and shift select, and let's do the legs. 1, 2, 3, 4, spin it around. 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. To separate these, we need to do what's called mark a seam. If you think of this like a sewing pattern, if we were making a jacket or a dress or a jumpsuit or whatever, where the stitching seams would be. Okay, to get the seams, and now my mind's got a complete blank. It's well, let's do it the other way. I was trying to remember the shortcut key, but let's do it the other way because my mind did go blank. With mark seams, there it is, under edges. Is it under faces? It shouldn't be. No, it'll be under edges. Yep. And so it's Control E and then mark seam. Okay, and you'll see that these edges have gone red. Okay, that tells us that we've got a seam there. However, with my particular model, I do see a problem under here, and it's marked a seam the whole way across. Okay, and I don't want that. I just wanted it around the legs. So for me to undo that, I'm just going to go into edge select mode, which is this here, this button, or it's control tab, sorry, edge select mode. I'm just going to select these two edges, leaving the other two edges of this quad intact, and I'm going to do the same thing again, control E, and I'm going to clear the seam from those two edges. So now my seam is just on the edges that I want. Okay, so we've marked this seam. Now if we do UV unwrap, let me just go back into vertex mode, which is there. If I select everything using my A key, now if I unwrap, you'll see it's starting to look a lot different down here. Let me just select all of these, and I'll go to a full screen on this window. To go to full screen in any window, hold your mouse in the window you want in full screen, and it's shift spacebar. And to get back, it's the same thing again, shift spacebar. So go to full screen on this window. So we see we have got the beginnings of an unwrap here, but it's looking very messy. We can't really tell what part of the body's which and where and why. It just isn't suitable. If we go back and have a look at a textured view, you can see how the texture is very badly applied. There's no sense to it at all. The legs are about the best part, actually. Some of it. But it's very, very bad. Okay. So obviously we need to do a bit more work here. So let me go back into the solid view, just because it's easier to see. Let me pull this down a little bit. So we need to split our texture up a bit more to make it a bit more readable. So if we have again a look at Robin Wood's UV map, you see it's been split into front and back, and the arms, and even the arms are front and back. So that's fine. So we need to split our model, or my model anyway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split it down this line here. Okay, so let me deselect everything. So it'll be down this line here. Now it's going to be very laborious to kind of go around and select every single one, and plus I've got some of my geometry hidden in the neck here. So there is a way to select a loop, and this is called a loop. When it goes loops around the model like that, it's called a loop. And the way you select a loop is hold your, let me deselect everything, hold your mouse over an edge which is going the same way as a loop you want to select, and it's Shift Alt select or Shift Alt click. Okay, it hasn't gone the whole way down here, but that's okay. We can just carry on around. Let's come across to there. We can do this one here, extend it across here, and let's come right the way up here. So this has been split basically in two, front and back. So again, I'll need to mark this seam. Okay, so it was Control E and mark seam, and you see these are turned red. Okay, well let's select everything again, and we'll unwrap it again. Just bear in mind how this unwrap looks at the moment. I'll bring our mouse back into the 3D window, U for unwrap, and unwrap, and you see it's changed again, but it's starting to change into something more usable, something we can recognise better. This will be the back of the body because it has, the back comes over the arms and the legs. This will be the front. These will be the arms and the legs, but it's very hard to distinguish them as well, so we'll do some more work on them. However, if I go back into a texture view now, you'll see that the UV unwrap is starting to look quite a bit better. You know, it's we can see where the stretching is from the texture, where it's not quite lining up, things like that, but it is a lot more usable than what it was. But we still need a bit more work, so let me go back into the solid view. Okay, one of the things we need to do, these arms and legs, the body's unwrapped quite nicely, the arms and legs haven't, so we need to kind of split this up into front and back as well. Okay, so what I can do here is, let me deselect everything, I'll select this vertex and I'll just go around this front edge of everything. Okay, you see once again it's selected edges that I didn't want because I'm using the vertex select. So if I go into edge select, I shift select these edges to deselect them. I've now got the unwrap that I want. Okay, while I'm in edge mode I can carry on with edge mode. This edge here has already been marked as a seam, so I can just carry on around and select these edges. Just as if we were cutting a paper template or something like that. Okay, so they're all selected, so I can Control E again, mark the seam. Okay, let's select everything and let's do another unwrap. We'll be looking at these areas here, see if they start to look a bit better. So you unwrap, and it's starting to look a bit more logical. And again, if we go into a textured view, we can see that the texture is lining up quite a bit better than what it did. Okay, legs are still a bit funky, so let me go back into a solid view and let me again mark some edges. Okay, so let's deselect all, select this edge, and what I'm going to do now is, the best way to explain is, if I just went straight around here, so we just have one square or quad on the front, and we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 on the back, and all connected. I'm going to try and even that out a little bit. So I'm going to come down the front, along the side, across the back edge, back towards the front and up again, and I'm going to do that with both legs. 1, across there, 2, 3, 4, 5. Because what will happen is it'll be like these will fold out flatter. It'll be like folding a piece of paper out. If this paper was taped and joined on this edge here, it's not going to fold evenly. Okay, but if we kind of plan our seams so that they do fold a lot more evenly, it'll come out flatter. So let me just mark those seams, select everything again. Let's come down here. I'm just resizing that so I can get the whole thing in the window. Back up here, U for unwrap, we can unwrap it again. Now we can see that our legs are unfolding a lot flatter and a lot more even. If I go into the texture view, you can see that's looking a lot nicer. And we could do the same with the tail. The solid view. So let's mark that one. Let's come down, across, back up. Control E, mark scene. I'm actually just going to split the arms across here. Because what will happen is it will allow these 3 or actually 4 faces to unfold better. Okay, so Control E, mark scenes there. And now let's have a look. So I'll select all, and I will unwrap with the U key. Now this is looking a lot more logical and a lot better. So let's go into our texture view, pressing the Z key. These are slanted off axis. The back's looking okay, but the front is kind of slanted and off axis. If we were using a regular texture on this, the texture would be going across it diagonally. Okay, so to fix that, well, there's a lot of ways to fix it, but if we look at our UV unwrap as it is now, you see on this island, each individual section would be called an island. On this island, it is slanted, so we can actually do something with that. We can go around and we can select each of these vertices on this island, so shift select, same way as we do in the 3D view. We could use a circle select, which is our C key, and with our scroll wheel we can increase or decrease the size of our circle and add more. But when selecting the whole island, quite honestly the easiest way is this key down here, which is the island selection, and then I'll just click once and that's the island. I can rotate this now, same as I would in the 3D view. So I'll press the R key, I'm holding my mouse away from the object a bit so I've got some more control. I press the R, and as I start to rotate, you can see the texture changing on the model above. That's a lot squarer and looking a lot better. Okay, so let's tab into object mode. We could probably do more work here, and in fact I think I will. What I'm probably going to do, so let's go into edit mode, is, let's see now, around the shoulder area it's kind of stretching a bit, so and once again we've got this kind of like three or four faces meeting at one point here around a corner. So let me select along this back shoulder here, or the back of the shoulder, select these edges up, and I'll do the same on this corner. Control E to mark a scene, select all again, and unwrap, and that has made it a good bit better. It's not looking as stretched, but once again this didn't stick here, so I'm just going to rotate, bring my mouse down, this is already selected, R, rotate this squarer, mode. And so now we've got the start of an unwrap.